What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Bears Over Beers presented by Second City Gridiron. I'm Ryan Droste, joined here tonight with my guy, Jacob Infante, to recover from what we saw, a very somber Sunday late afternoon game. Jacob, it's been a few days. How you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. It definitely took me a little bit to fully have everything sink in. I think I remember because I was watching. I don't know what your story was. I'm sure like everyone's got some sort of story about how the game went down, what the reaction was. I was watching the game with my dad. He drove down from St. Louis, and we were both feeling pretty good. High fiving each other after that touchdown by Roschon Johnson. I just went numb. I felt nothing for a while. And that next day, all my coworkers know I'm a Bears fan. So they come in, gave their condolences. And I'm like, yeah, talk as much crap as you want. Nothing will hurt me at this point.
We're Bears fans. We're used to it, right? We've been through this a time or two. Yeah, it's man, brutal. I wouldn't say I'm fully over it at this point in time because I have this feeling that at the end of the season, this one's just going to come back and haunt us. Like we're going to be one game out, or there's going to be a tiebreaker scenario, and I just can't shake that feeling.
Yeah, going back and crunching the numbers. Obviously those NFC North games are going to be brutal, honestly. So this would have been a nice one to have, be able to get a leg up over another NFC playoff contender. Wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. So we're here, we're still alive, but it doesn't. It stings. Like out of all the ways for that game to end, of course, that's the way that it has to go down. Just come on.
Worst possible scenario. Why don't you just tell me, just take me through as that Hail Mary happened, like your thoughts, your surroundings, what the people around you, your father, what was going down. And as you do that, actually, I'm going to rejoin the stream because I see my connection's not very good for some reason. So hopefully my my internet will recover here. So tell the listeners, I'll be right back.
Of course. Yeah. So I just remember I didn't make a sound. I didn't move. Nothing happened when, that pass got completed. I sat there because what I was doing is I was drafting up a write-up immediately right out of the gate for Windy City Gridiron to do like the post-game recap or whatever. And with those, you have to get those out as quickly as possible. That's just, ideally we want to be the first ones to get that article out. So I had most of it written out. And then I'm like, I'm just expecting the Bears are, going to pull this one off. I had a tweet drafted up and everything. I was feeling confident. And then I think my mistake was I let my guard down, realizing that, this is the Chicago Bears we're talking about. This, it's going to fall apart in some comical fashion. And that's exactly what it did. And my dad's right there in the comments. I didn't say a word for like 2 minutes. I just stood there silently, blank expression on my face. There is no life behind these eyes. And I decided to, I calmly changed the tone of the article to, the Bears lose in heartbreaking fashion, whatever, keep everything else the same, go get it out. I just sit there and I'm like, God damn it, man. Like we've seen some stuff, just being Bears fans. We've seen some stuff over the years. And this is up there. This is up there as one of the most heartbreaking and most Chicago Bears way to win a game. And it was tragic.
I always, when we have these situations where the Bears are about to go ahead at the end of the game, I am just always watching the clock. Like, how much time are they leaving them? And I think I'm just conditioned with, I think back to, I think it was in 2008 against the Falcons. I can't remember off the top of my head. They had like 10 seconds or something and they got into field goal range and they won down at the Georgia Dome. You know, we've seen the Hail Mary, we've seen the Packers game with Randall Cobb, of course. And like, I'm just thinking when the Bears had the ball down there and they're about ready to score, I'm like, just run the clock all the way down. Do not leave them any time. And I just was already thinking the worst. And when they threw up that Hail Mary, I was watching it in my basement. My wife and our kids were upstairs, and I just yelled out, "You have got to be kidding me!" And then I heard my wife like go into the other room, and all I heard was "No!" No. She's just like, "No!" And I'm like, "Oh my God!" I'm like trying to, contain my language with my children listening to me as best I could, but I was not happy, man. And
You're a better man than me for that, because I feel like once I finally got the energy to start speaking, I think one of the first things I said was an F-bomb. And it's I mean, what else literally, what else can you say in something like that?
well,
So,
I'm not saying I didn't have any F-bombs. I just tried to limit them,
yeah.
to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, if your kids ask, "Daddy, what's this word mean?" It's like, "Hey, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out."
Yeah.
But no, it's tough out here. It's so tough out here.
Yeah. So I knew, then I look at the schedule and I see, oh, I haven't done a show with you in a while. Jacob and I are going to be doing the show this week. I have to pick something heavy for my beer. And, I know it's been a few days, but I'm still not feeling great about it. So I actually I'm going to be real honest with you. This has been sitting in my beer fridge for 2 years.
Ooh.
And every time I think about drinking it, I'm like, it's too late. I can't crack this one open. It's an imperial stout, so it ages fine. So 2 years is fine for a beer like this.
Yeah.
Jacob, this is 14.8%.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's from Revolution Brewing in Chicago. It's called Cafe Death.
Oh, all right.
It's an imperial stout aged in bourbon barrels, steeped with coffee. Yeah, so I was a little nervous because it's steeped in coffee. I don't think there's going to be that much caffeine as we record at 8 p.m. Central, and I do have to work in the morning.
Yeah.
But I'll crack this open and I'll let you know how it is. But yeah, we're essentially at about a 15% beer here, Jacob.
You're working at almost 3 times as much as I am right now.
Oh my God.
I feel like one of these days, I feel like, especially on a show with you, I need to up my game a little bit more, because I got this from the store literally, right when I got off work. I didn't think, all right, I need to contend with something heavier. So I have haven't drank this brand before, a Deschutes Black Butte from Bend, Oregon. It's a porter named for iconic Black Butte. Towering high above Central Oregon and seen for miles, the surprisingly balanced porter has notes of rich chocolate and coffee, a luscious creaminess, and roasted finish. No wonder it's America's favorite. We'll see if it's my favorite, but Butte kind of looks like butt, and I've made most of my Twitter brand off of being an immature man-child, so I feel like this was a fitting one. It caught my eye right away. So it's not going to be as dangerous as what you're working with, the Cafe Death. Just the name chose. All right, you're you're going to be in for something.
Oh, yeah, Lord. My cheeks start getting red about halfway through this show. You just know it's working. I mean, it's I gotta say, Black Butte, I've had that before. It's been years, but I have had it. That's a solid beer. So we both got dark beers going on tonight. So that's solid. This one, when I poured it, oh yeah, I could smell the bourbon barrel aging from about 2 feet away here on my desk. Let me give it a try.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's real good. It's actually smooth for a 15% beer.
Nice.
Not bad.
Can you taste the coffee on that?
Yeah, I can taste it on the back end, kind of like after I swallow, you breathe out the coffee for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man, good stuff.
All right, so I might as well jump in with mine now, see how this turns out, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not. I mean, it's 5.5, so it's nothing crazy or anything, but it's got just enough of an aftertaste. They mentioned like a chocolate aftertaste. I can kind of taste that like on the back of my tongue as it went down.
Yeah.
So I mean, Black Butte gets a thumbs up for me. One sip in. We'll see how it goes. 50 minutes into the show, but for now, having a good time.
You're getting a little fancy on us here because when we started doing the show together this year, us, the four guys doing the rotation, Brian and Kyrie and everything.
Yeah,
You're like, I'm kind of new to the craft beer scene. I'm used to drinking the 4% beers, and you're going to be dipping in and kind of pushing your limits. And here you are drinking porters, Jacob. It's the end of
I know.
October.
It's crazy. I feel like an actual adult now, drinking some of these instead of the piss water, that I'm used to. So this is definitely an eye-opening experience for me for sure. So one of these days I'll get to your level and mess around with one of the 15s. I'm thinking if there's any week for you to do that, though, I feel like this coming off the Commander
Exactly.
is probably the best one to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, this was definitely one. I knew that minute that game ended that, all right, I'm getting deep into the beer catalog this week. So here we are. Any final thoughts, Jacob, then on week 8? Are we over it? We kind of talked about that. I think I'm over the sting of it. It's one of those things where the worst possible way to lose. Our team has now been the butt of jokes all week long. I feel like, and we're going to get into it when we talk the Cardinals game, we need a dominant performance this weekend to erase this, but it's just going to be hanging there all year until playoff season. If we can win some games, tie break scenario, like I said, with Washington, you're going to hopefully be in the mix with them if we can win some games. Now, boy, these next couple games are way more important now than they were going into the last game, I would say. But I would say I'm over the sting. I am not over the long-term ramifications of this.
I mean, I think that's a good way to put it. Honestly, I don't know. It's been a couple days since the tragic ending to that game. And I feel like to this point, it's like, all right, now we're moving forward. I feel like Wednesday's the time of the week where people start to wrap up what happened the previous Sunday, move on to next week. And I feel like that, it's the midway point of the week. I feel like it's perfect to, take a quick look back, say that was awful. I hated every second of what happened after that Hail Mary. But now here we are. And it should be an interesting game, going up against the Cardinals, who are 4-4. And, we'll get into it more, but this is a team where they can beat, I feel like they can beat almost any team in the NFL, and they can lose to almost any team in the NFL. It just depends on which Arizona Cardinals team shows up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your dad makes this point in the chat, not over the lack of accountability by Flus. Absolutely. I mean, I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about our concerns with the coaching staff, because this is not the first time we've seen this out of this coaching staff, where we could pin the loss on them. We had those games last year where they had the 90+% win percentage going to the fourth quarter and they blew it. Yeah. And, we've had our concerns about Waldron this year, and we were hoping kind of going into the bye that they had found a rhythm with the offense. They were making good use out of Cole Kmet. DeAndre Swift started, get his running legs under him, and he had a great game. He was the big upside of the Commanders game, really the only one really on offense, at least out of the skill position players with the ball in their hands. But my God, Jacob, I have so many questions now. At the time I was not a fan of keeping Eberfluh back in January. I checked my Twitter timeline for proof. I did not want to keep him, but when they roll with him, I sold myself on the idea of, look, he's got a strong defense. I understand why they're doing this. Maybe not ideal with a young quarterback. And now I have this sense of doom that, we're repeating the cycle. We're going to have a new coach in here next year, and Caleb's going to have to learn a whole new offensive system. And here we go again. Where are you at on the coaching staff right now?
I'll start by saying I was in the same boat this past offseason. I thought Well, one, first and foremost, I thought the writing was on the wall. The Bears were going to draft a new quarterback, and that was going to be Caleb Williams at 1. I thought that from probably since last October, November, but like once they really locked in that number 1 pick from the Panthers, I thought it was, a done deal. So to that point, I thought it made all the sense in the world to move on. I think that, like you were saying, it's a fresh start. It's a new quarterback. It's a new era. And you have some questions about your head coach to begin with. Why risk it in the first year of your new quarterback's NFL career? And like you, I mean, I sold myself on that ability of, the defense is looking good. You're stacking a couple wins to close out the year. Things are turning around. Not necessarily realizing, all right, there's still quite a bit that needs to be answered. You don't know what the offense is going to be. I mean, I thought Shane Waldron was going to be a good hire. There have been flashes, but there's not nearly enough substance at this stage. And then the mismanagement of the Washington game. And on top of that, and again, it's the Albert Breer report. I don't have the sources to confirm or deny it by any means. So that's not my place. But the reports, the rumblings, I should say, that Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, really wanted that Bears head coaching job should it come open. I thought, I'm like, because this is a guy, he's killed it in Detroit the last couple of years. He's killing it now. I mean, he has Jared Goff throwing for, 100% completion percentage, scheming guys open. And, you can be part of that, sure, to the offensive line, but, you also need to credit the ability to work guys open, to work to your players' strengths. I mean, Ben Johnson's probably the highest touted head coaching candidate to make that jump from the coordinator position to head coach, probably since Kyle Shanahan coming from the Falcons over the 49ers in 2017, whatever year that was, 18 maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's a lot to be cautious about. And, these last couple of weeks, right as I was starting to get some of that, there's starting to build some momentum, starting to build some trust in this coaching staff. It's like, all right, they've got some pretty strong wins stacking up here, come out of the bye week looking totally unprepared. It's a damn shame. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. It's not the end of the world. I think there's still a chance that they turn things around, but this was a game I think that they needed to win, and for them to lose in such preventable fashion, it's it's not a good look.
I want to go to this chat we've got from Z on the YouTube chat. He says, "These are growing pains. Flus has got the best defense in the NFL. Let's go take care of those damn Chicago Cardinals for leaving our city years ago." I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the Chicago Cardinals here in a little bit when we get into the game. I think the biggest disappointment for me on the coaching perspective, no question, has been Shane Waldron. You said it. I did not expect this. I don't want to say jumping for joy excited, but when they hired him, all right, this is a solid hire. He had Geno Smith playing good. This makes a lot of sense. And he just doesn't look like he has any flow to these games. Half of the time this year, he can't figure out how to use the offense, how to use his players. I've seen a lot written on the types of routes that DJ is running versus the types of routes that Rome is running and Keenan is running. And they all seem to be out of place.
Yeah.
They got DJ running the go routes, and it shouldn't really be the case. You've got a situation where Rome is struggling a bit on the option routes. Maybe he shouldn't be having that decision to make. And, we've all seen the charts out there on social media about the quarterbacks and throw into their first read. And, I've kind of gone both directions on this because I know Bears fans, wanting to support our guy, we're like, oh, look, Jaden Daniels, he's always throwing to his first read. Look at our guy, Caleb. He's playing so good, and he doesn't have to throw to his first read. He's progressing through his reads. But then we see this game on Sunday, and it's like, it's more of a weakness because our offensive coordinator can't seem to scheme that first read open to save his life, whereas Kingsbury is making it easy for his rookie quarterback, and he's thriving. That's bad, Jacob. That's real bad news for our rookie quarterback to be in this situation where he has to do so much. I mean, in some ways, that's why I am so confident in him long term because of how he has played given the limitations around him.
Yeah.
But the fact that his offensive coordinator cannot help him out better than this is so disappointing.
No, 100%. And I mean, go back to the Cliff Kingsbury thing. It's a totally different task that Kingsbury has with what Daniels is operating within that Washington Commanders offense compared to what Caleb Williams is being asked to do by Shane Waldron within this Bears offense. There's good and bad to that. I think from a long-term perspective, it's going to be more sustainable for Caleb's individual skill set to be able to make those full field reads, to go through progressions, look past the first read, go to second read, third read, what have you. I think that's going to help out a lot. Whereas, might be a little tougher for Jaden Daniels, but at least for this year, Cliff Kingsbury is coaching circles around Shane Waldron. And I think that, especially when you consider the personnel, like on paper, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, that's a better group of weapons than, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, and then I don't know, De'Ami Brown or something. No disrespect to De'Ami Brown. But, the Bears on paper have a better group of weapons, Noah Brown, sure. But either way, I think a lot of it comes down to making your rookie quarterback comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a fine line between coaching to make them better for the future and coaching to make them better now. And I think that that's a fine line that Waldron's maybe struggling a little bit with. I think in the long run, this will be something that'll be helpful, but right out of the gate, I mean, they're not really doing him too many favors. And a lot of it too is, route concepts just aren't executing.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was. I think there's one play, it was Cole Kmet and I think DJ Moore. They were running like a mesh concept. They both just ran into each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you got to coach that differently, man. You can't be having, and I don't think part of, sure, some of that's on the players, but still you need to be able to teach, all right, route depth, this is where you need to be, this is where you need to be, stuff like that. So I don't know. My mind's just all over the place right now. It's not great.
Yeah, and with Eberfluh, look, if he was the defensive coordinator, I'd feel great about him. It's just the fact of him managing the game as the top guy, being the guy who could overrule some of these questionable calls, on the goal line, giving the ball to a backup offensive lineman, the stuff we're pulling our hair out about. I just don't know that Eberflus is that guy long term anymore, just because we've seen so many failures from the game management perspective. And then him, I'm not want to reinvent the wheel. Everyone's been talking about this all week, but the stuff about not admitting the error on the second to last play of the game when everybody knows that was foolish as hell to just give him 13 yards to put him in range for the Hail Mary. That kind of stuff just really has me questioning now the trajectory of this franchise. I don't want to overact too much because it's one game. They can get it back on track, but man, as we're going to talk about here after our break, there is so much pressure now on the Arizona New England game. I feel these are must-win games now. We have to be 6-3 going into that Green Bay game if we want to have a chance at the wild card this year, don't you think?
No, I definitely think that. And especially with the uncertainty of the NFC North, Green Bay is looking good. Detroit's looking good. Minnesota, lost a couple games, but they also traded for Cam Robinson to, replace Darisaw, who's hurt and out for the year. They're always dangerous. And I think that it's the most, the more wins that you can get before then, the better off you're going to be. And, that includes if you can beat Seattle later down in the year. That includes if you can beat San Francisco, which should be tough, but I mean, they're looking human. They don't look like the juggernauts they had the last couple of years. And they've got a couple injuries going for them. So the last thing I'll say about, last week's game is I bring up there's a tweet from Ian Harditz. I think I'm saying that right. But he said Roschon Johnson is the NFL's only player to score a touchdown on 100% of their carries inside the 5-yard line this season. And then he added, what a blessing that must be for the Bears, knowing that you have this sort of sure thing option available once you get to the goal line. And Lord knows how many times I've had to tell my coworkers this week, like, Oh yeah, it makes total sense. You're down, you have a chance to take the lead late in the game. Let's just give it to a 300-pound offensive lineman who's never taken a handoff in his entire life.
Just
That's
insane.
it's just trying so hard to be the smartest guy in the room. And there's a time and place for that. It's when you're up by like 2-3 scores and you're not in any jeopardy of losing the lead. You don't do that when you're down in America's game of the week and it's the fourth quarter or whenever it was. So I don't know. The more I talk about it, the more I get all riled up and everything. But I don't know. On to the future. Like you said, these next couple of games are going to be really crucial for this team and this organization as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, we're going to dive into the Chicago Bears Arizona Cardinals game coming up this weekend. But before we do, we got to throw it to a real quick break right now. And we are going to hear from our friends over at Underdog. All right. So, do you think Caleb Williams will rack up higher than 2 passing touchdowns this weekend? Or do you think that DeAndre Swift will get higher than 50 yards rushing this weekend? Well, you can cook up some entries for a shot to win real cash prizes all football season long. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all of your takes this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones are ice cold? Make your entries in just a few taps and turn your sports opinions into real money. So, with the football season underway, Underdog has vulture protection. That's right. If you select a designated running back to score a touchdown in your pick'em entry and they get vultured, Underdog will rescue your entry. Red Zone Rush, a game you won't find anywhere else. Just pick whether or not a player will score a TD by swiping right for yes and left for no. Simple as that. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted and you'll get a 51% profit boost when you play. So join over 5 million fans that are already playing on Underdog with their champs game. You could win money by making entries with your favorite players. You could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on player stats like passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and much more. Underdog is available in 33 states. That includes California, Texas, and Georgia. And you can check their website for the Pick'em eligibility map. But they're 33 states. So the majority of the country you can find Underdog. And it's currently Boostober on Underdog. That's right. There's a promo to play nearly every single day. We've got a promo here for you right here on the show. Underdog, the best place to play champions. Go sign up now, deposit, use the promo code CITY, that's all caps CITY, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code CITY to support us and Underdog. $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. So, I wouldn't say I'm big time into this kind of fantasy or wagering or anything like that, but I have checked out Underdog a little bit. I do like it. It's very easy to use. I tend to almost always go for the Bears games because I feel I'm most plugged into usually what I think the Bears are going to do on offense, although Shane Waldron's making that a little bit difficult some weeks this year. But I mean, certainly I think this week I'm going to look at that Bears Cardinals game and I'll probably look at higher or lower when it comes to Caleb Williams and his passing this week. Because as we're about to get into, that Arizona Cardinals defense, not too good, Jacob. So, I think Caleb is primed for a big game. Talk about it here in a minute. If you want to join me, you can get Underdog by downloading the app today. Again, use code CITY, get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Let me just say that you must be 18 plus to play, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, and 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona. You got to be present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. If you're concerned with your play, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, it's 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text Hope NY. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code CITY. All right, Jacob. Let's look ahead. Let's look ahead to week number 9. I think I got a typo there. Week number 9, the Chicago Bears versus the Arizona Cardinals. Got some strong history, Jacob, with these two franchises. They are the only two charter teams from the first season in the NFL still in existence. I know those Packers fans think that they were there. They were not. The team was in existence. The Green Bay Packers were not part of the NFL in year number 1. The Chicago Bears and at the time, the Chicago Cardinals were. So they are the only two charter teams still in the NFL. Of course, the Chicago Cardinals were in Chicago until 1959. They moved to St. Louis for the 1960 season, your neck of the woods, Jacob.
Mhm.
And then they were there till the late 80s when they moved to Arizona in time for the 1988 season. I just got in this deep dive looking at the history of the Arizona and Chicago Cardinals. And in 1944, I'd forgotten about this. The team merged with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They became Card Pitt for the 1944 season. That was for 1 year just because of the shortage of players due to World War II. And the Cardinals' only league championships were while they were in Chicago in 1925 and 1947. So, look, I mean, these teams have been in existence for a long time. They've played each other a lot over the years. And, I'm sure the Bears have been in some must-win situations against the Cardinals. We know the famous game in 2006 on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
They got to pull this one out, Jacob. We gotta get these wins because I feel if the Bears do not win this week, I feel Flus could lose the team. With everything that's been said right now, if they have a strong performance, they could turn it around. They can keep all the controversy in house, and they can believe in one another. But if they come out and they have an embarrassing performance, those voices of dissent are going to get louder and louder and louder. And I mean, we could have a situation like, what was it, 2014 with Tressman, where he completely lost the locker room.
Yeah.
This is very important this week. What do you think?
No, I'm with you there. And I think especially with not just the playoff long-term ramifications, but also, again, coming off such a controversial loss where, you've got players openly questioning decisions that the coaches are making. And that's not something you see. We haven't seen it under Eberfluh. We don't see it very often with any Chicago Bears coach, really, where they're openly saying, yeah, I don't know what we were doing there. That didn't really make sense to me. And I think that's, they're being honest. They're being honest with the media. They're being honest with the fans. But it shows to a certain point where you can't keep making those kind of mistakes. And these players will blindly be like, yes, coach, everything you say goes, whatever. It's natural to question that level of authority, that level of competency, I guess, when you're losing in such preventable fashion. That's, coming down from the coaching staff downwards. So I'm with you there. I think this is a must win. And, like we said earlier in the show, when you have such a talented NFC North division to compete against, you need as many wins outside of that as possible. And I know it's interesting. I checked, and Cardinals are currently -1 right now to win this game. I know, obviously it's in Arizona. It's at State Farm Stadium. So I think that's going to be interesting because, like we were touching on, Arizona's had some really good games and they've had some really bad games. Like, they got demolished by the Commanders 42-14. They got demolished by the Packers 34-13. They beat Miami last week, though. They beat the Rams 41-10, and they beat the 49ers too. So it's a tale of two teams with the Cardinals this year. And I think that with a team like that, you need to play disciplined, because especially if they're a team like where they can get hot at any moment. I mean, you need to be at your A game. So it's I'm with you there 100%.
Yeah, it's really odd when you just look up and down their schedule and the wins and losses. Like 3 of their 4 wins were within 2 points, like a 1-point win against San Francisco, a 1-point win against Miami. They had 2 points against the Chargers, but then blew out the Rams. So when you look at the common opponents, they beat the Rams by a lot, 41-10, as you said. Lost to Washington by way more than we did, 42-14. That Bears defense, again, to credit Eberflus, holding Jaden Daniels and that high flying offense to no touchdowns until the Hail Mary was a hell of a performance. So, if we can rise to the occasion on offense and do what we've been doing on defense, this should be a win. I mean, this Arizona team is real bad on defense. Just looking at their stats up and down, they're 26th in the league in yards per game on defense, overall yards per game, total defense, 26th in passing defense yards per game, 26th in rushing, 24th in points allowed, 27th in the league in sacks per game. They don't really get after the quarterback very well. 32nd dead last in third down defense, 19th in interceptions, 12th in red zone TD rate, a little bit better there. 29th in QB pressure percentage, 31st in QB hurries percentage, 31st in blitz percentage. This Bears O-line is really banged up. Luckily for them, this team doesn't get after the quarterback very well. But, I mean, given the health of the Bears offensive line and us having no idea what the hell they're going to do on the left side of the line come Sunday, I mean, unfortunately for us, this could be one of the games where the Cardinals pass rush finally gets after it. I hope not, but those stats are dire. Absolutely dire.
Yeah, I mean, and that's going to be an interesting thing to watch is, the Bears offensive line obviously hasn't been perfect by any means. There's been some times where they've looked decent, but that wasn't this past week against the Commanders. Certainly wasn't back when they got demolished by the Texans up front. And it's going to be interesting now with Braxton Jones being week to week. How's Karan Amagaji going to fare? I'll say this. I feel like some people gave him a little too much flack, especially because, it's an FCS offensive line rookie at a position offensive tackle where a lot of players struggle right out of the gate in their first year of the NFL. And he's a guy who, he didn't play FBS football, let alone Power 4 football or Power 5 then. And he's coming off an injury too. So he's this moldable ball of clay with insane length. He's super athletic. He's strong. The tools are all there for him to be realistically, I think, a good starting offensive tackle in the NFL, but it's not going to happen right away. It never was. So I think some of the expectations for him jumping and it's like, oh, by the way, Karan, you're coming in. Braxton just got hurt. That's a lot to ask out of a guy in those exact circumstances. So I think he's going to be a big part of the offensive line performance. I mean, like you said, you summed it up well. The Cardinals defense hasn't been very good. They're not rushing the passer at a very high level. Dennis Gardeck has been solid off the edge, but that's really about it as far as consistent pressures and consistently getting to the quarterback. I mean, they don't have anyone above 3 sacks through 8 games, which that's not, amazing by any means. So yeah, I think it's really going to be huge up front for both teams, honestly. So, I guess we'll find out exactly who comes out on top in the trenches there, but TBD, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it with Amagaji. It's just nobody wanted him to play this year. He's got, coming off the injury, got a lot to learn, and just kind of forced to go in there given the depth issues with all those injuries that just came out of the gate on Sunday, and then let alone the preseason injuries we've had. Bates is now coming back, could be in the mix, Borum as well. So we might have some options. But I mean, if we were playing a team with a better pass rush, I would be extremely scared for Caleb this week. Given the Cardinals' challenges, hopefully we'll be all right. But man, yeah, I mean, that Bears injury report today, I think it had 5 O linemen on it altogether, and they just had a walkthrough. But just judging by would they have been able to practice or not, it was not good. I mean, on the defensive side, Brisker's still out from that concussion. Happened back on October 6th, I believe was the date. Kyler Gordon still not practicing. I mean, how are you feeling about the secondary right now?
Secondary, I feel like that's something where it's going to it might start to see something ramped up. Admittedly, I think this is a week where Brisker does end up playing. Maybe it's not going to be in the exact in like a full starting regular snap capacity. But I think that, enough weeks have passed, and unless there's something serious going on, I feel like we're going to start to see him pick it up a little bit in practice here in the next couple days. Also, I don't know how I missed that Almagaji didn't even participate. I didn't even realize that he was hurt too. So that's something that's news to me. So that's really going to complicate things.
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed that earlier on, but yeah, I mean, Montez Sweat didn't participate. Yeah, and like you were saying, Brisker and Gordon, we'll see. I'm not too worried about the secondary because I feel like the secondary has been good even without those guys. I think, you've got Jalen Johnson playing at a very high level. Kevin Byard's been good. Josh Blackwell stepping in pretty well as a backup slot corner to Kyler Gordon. Say what you want about Tyreek Stevenson. I know we've, talked. I'm sure you and I have talked about that whole situation, long enough at this point. But, the team as a whole isn't allowing too mmany big plays, if any. I think, that Terry McLaurin deep ball that Washington had, that's like the only big game that I can, only big game that I can think of right off the top of my head where it's like, all right, the secondary got beat deep and it was just, broken down coverage vertically. And the other team was able to move the ball down the field. So secondary, I'm not as worried about. Offensive line, though, I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah. No, they have so much depth at in the secondary. I see Ron brought this up in the chat and about how he would say hit the bench to Stephenson. Would you bench him in this game? Or do you think you just can't get away with it given the stakes in the game?
So that's a good question. And I feel like there's got to be some sort of accountability. Exactly what that might be, I mean, you could debate. I feel like at the very least to say early on, like, hey, we're going to bench you this first drive or something like that. Because with the way the secondary has been playing with him, I feel like it'd be one thing if it was like Jalen Johnson who did it, where, he's playing at a Pro Bowl, all pro level. You need that. You can't replicate that with just some guy on your bench. With some of Stevenson's ups and downs, though, I feel like maybe, again, not entirely benching him. I know some people were calling to cut him, which that's, way too extreme.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe see what you have in Jalen Jones on the perimeter there. See what you have in these other guys. Maybe call someone up from the practice squad. I don't know. I feel like, we can only say so much because we don't know exactly what that accountability looks like. And I only have to hope that there's something, because you can't just be making those kinds of mistakes, with the game on the line and stuff like that, and, expect to get off scot-free. Me personally, I wouldn't have publicly praised him for like his tweet or whatever that he had.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, cool. He said, my bad. But literally anybody can say, oh, that's my bad. Sorry. And it doesn't change the fact that they've messed up. It doesn't make up for the fact that they messed up. They need to show that they can be better and they will be better. So maybe eat into his playing time a little bit. But again, there's only so much you can do. You're not going to outright cut the guy, especially someone who's a second round pick just last year.
Yeah, no, that's insane. You can't do that. But
No,
yeah, he needs a big game. I mean, between him and Jalen, we have got to keep Marvin Harrison Jr. contained. I mean, he's lived up to all the billing. He's been fantastic this year. We can't let him kill us in this game. It's not like they have a ton of options. They got the tight end who plays pretty well, but overall, if they can contain Marvin Harrison Jr., if we can get after Kyler and contain him in the pocket, not let him scramble too much, because Kyler's, he's looked really good this year. He's, he looks like the pre-injury Kyler Murray. And so if they can contain him in the pocket, if they can shut down the run game, which, that's an if. We've had some bad run defense performances this year. That's been one of the glaring weaknesses with the defense this year. But if they can contain James Conner a bit, and not let McBride kill him and contain Harrison, it's a lot of what ifs, but they can do that. I mean, they can do well. And look, I think the Washington offense is certainly better than the Arizona defense or offense. Sorry. And they they shut him down for most of the game.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to think that they can't do it.
I mean, yeah, I think it's definitely possible. And as I'm frantically pulling up here, I want to check to see, because I know the Bears don't switch cornerbacks necessarily. They more or less stay to one side of the field, Jalen on the right, Tyreek to the left. It does look like there's a pretty even distribution for Marvin Harrison. So he's, mostly out wide, 294 snaps out wide compared to 73 in the slot, but it's almost dead even. 148 on the left side as the outside receiver, 146 to the right. So they move him back and forth. So there are going to be some reps where Jalen's going to go up against Marvin Harrison Jr., but that's also where you're going to need Tyreek Stephenson to step it up too, because, Marvin Harrison Jr., like I know a lot of Bears fans were huge on him. I was huge on him. So much so that, if it's like, you trade down for the number one pick, keep Fields, draft Marvin Harrison, whatever, yada, yada, yada. It's starting to click for him now. And when you have those freakish tools, you have those ball skills, you have the size, you have the speed, you have the strength, and now it's clicking from a mental standpoint. I think that's when things are really going to get dangerous. So yeah, I'm with you 100%. This is going to be a huge game for Tyreek Stephenson for that, and just for coming off of the disappointing performance against the Commanders.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Hail Mary situation, and then he had a really bad penalty in that game too.
Yeah.
He made some plays too, but man, he's got a lot to prove. All eyes in Chicago are going to be on him this week. There's a lot of pressure on him, and a lot of pressure on the team in general. Let me ask you this, just comparing what's been going on with Marvin Jr. and of course our guy Rome Odunze. I mean, what do you think is hindering Rome from having that huge breakout game? We know he's gotten in the end zone and everything, but he hasn't had the consistency that we were hoping to see out of him. Now, of course, the Bears have a lot of talented receivers and a very talented tight end, some of which don't get involved enough, and that's on Waldron, I think, somewhat. But what has been limiting Rome, and us, waiting and waiting for this huge breakout game that just hasn't seemed to come yet?
I think it honestly goes back to kind of what we were talking about earlier with Shane Waldron struggling to get those first reads open. It puts so much more work on those wide receivers, past the first read, or just in general, to say like, all right, you're not really going to get too much help. You're not really going to be schemed open too often. This is purely a one-on-one, man-to-man situation. And I feel like that's hurting him a little bit. And also just they're not targeting him enough. I feel like that's something, going back and watching the tape, Odunze hasn't been bad at all. And that's something I want to make abundantly clear. Just because his numbers aren't as good as Marvin Harrison or as good as Malik Neighbors or even Brian Thomas, who's been freaking unbelievable in Jacksonville this year, which it's about time they give Trevor Lawrence a true number one wide receiver down there. But even though Odunze's numbers aren't that high compared to those guys, I don't think he's significantly worse. I just think part of it's route concepts. I think part of it is there are too many mouths to feed. And I mean, you're right. He hasn't had like that true breakout performance. I mean, he topped 100 yards a couple weeks, earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
But from a week to week consistency basis, it's not there. But I just don't think that that's Odunze's fault. And I think that a lot of it is Caleb seeing, all right, first read's not open, whether it's Rome or not. And then having a guy like, DeAndre Swift, who's a good pass catcher, a Roshan Johnson, who can catch the pass well, Cole Kmet, who's a big body security blanket. Those are typically going to be better check down options than a wide receiver, regardless of, who it is in most cases. So I think that's playing a big role in it too. I don't think that's an indictment on Odunze by any means. I think he's been good. Whether or not you expected him to be great out of the gate, that's up for personal discussion. But I think that a lot of it is factors that are currently out of his control. But I do think that, next year and down the line, that's something that's going to change.
Oh, yeah, he had the 112 yards against Indianapolis back in week 3. That was also the game he got into the end zone. But since then, yeah, no touchdowns. Hasn't been above 41 yards since. And I agree, from watching the tape, there's some games where he's getting open and we're just not getting him the ball. But yeah, I think a lot of this is scheme too. It's not on him really, as you said, Jacob. And I've been week after week. I know JB talks about this, our guy elsewhere here on the site, talking about having him on his fantasy team and always putting him in. Like every week I sell myself. I'm putting Odunze in my fantasy lineup, and then it's just like, oh man, another 40-yard performance. Like every week I think it's going to be the big game, and it just hasn't happened yet. But I mean, I think it's coming. It's just there's a lot of things working against him right now, unfortunately.
No, absolutely. And you want to hear something cringeworthy? So I'm in a dynasty league right now with a couple of my brothers from my fraternity from, back in college. And I had the number 1 pick, which was my own, pretty crappy team. I got Marvin Harrison out of that, but I also had the number 4 pick, I believe. Was it the number 4? Yeah. And Malik Neighbors was gone, obviously. And I don't remember who else it was, but I had between Odunze, Caleb, and Brock Bowers. I realistically, I mean, because I bought into the Anthony Richardson hype. I'm like, okay, I've got a young quarterback. I'm fine there. I was between Odunze and Bowers. And just from a pure fantasy perspective, it is biting me in the ass right now that I didn't take Bowers. Again, that's not to say that's not to say that Odunze has been trash by any means, because he hasn't. He's been good. I think, going off of going off of what you're seeing from him on tape and some of the flashes. But I mean, man, you're right. Fantasy Odunze is just the inconsistency. It's not his fault, but as a fantasy asset, very, very risky.
Yeah. So I got Odunze and Bowers on my team, and
Oh,
I've been putting Bowers in. It's not a dynasty league or anything like that, but yeah, I've been putting him in and every week, and that's been paying dividends. So I've been happy about that.
Dude, there are so many tight ends that are like just okay right now in fantasy. It's like Bowers has been great. Komet's had a couple of good games, but everyone's just so up and down. Like Laporta's been up and down, hasn't been amazing. Evan Ingram's been pretty good, but he's missed a couple games. It's like if Market Andrews has been a disappointment. I mean, it's like if you drafted a tight end early, like you're probably, you're probably flopping right now, which
Dude,
sucks.
I had Andrews on my team, and I ended up dropping him one week because I needed a spot on my bench, and that was the week where he had the big game. Of
really?
course.
Oh.
Yeah, it was that week.
It
Was that
always
2
works
weeks
that
ago?
way.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah. Dude, crazy. Absolutely crazy. But yeah, it's I think for the Bears, they got to get Cole involved early in this game, because every game where our offenses look good, he's there, he's having a big game, and he kind of vanished this last weekend, and we're wondering what happened on the bye week, because to us as fans watching this team, it always seems like he's kind of one of those keys to the game. Like when he's having a good game, it just unlocks the whole offense. They've got the run game going. It was odd that they had the run game going, but they couldn't get the passing game going this last week.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, I don't know. I'm just, I don't know. I'm just hoping for better things. That's where I'm at, just in general. The Bears are bad, not bad, but they're coming off a bad game. My fantasy team is in the gutter. I'm hanging on by a thread here. So there's a lot of things that need to get better, but I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Well, hopefully next time we're on, I don't feel the need to actually pour a 15% beer, given what had happened. Maybe if I'm doing it, it's in celebration.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling this one, Jacob. Cafe Death is it's lived up to its reputation. It's good stuff.
Yeah. And it's extreme too, because they have because it's death without the A.
Yeah.
Exactly. I noticed that too. It's like Megadeth, like
Yeah.
That's pretty hardcore.
Chicago's own Revolution Brewing. It's doing the job. It's absolutely doing the job.
Beautiful.
Well, hey, man, this has been a fun show. Flew by as always. You got any big plans for Halloween tomorrow night? You dressing up, Jacob?
I'm not. So here's the thing. I got invited to a party on Friday, but I didn't get invited until like Monday, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll just stay in this year for Halloween. I'm cool with that. I bought an Elvis costume for last year. I can't do that as a repeat because they've already seen me in Elvis. I can't be the king twice. But so I don't know. Tomorrow I'm not doing anything. Living the bachelor life. I mean, my apartment complex. I doubt any of the kids here are going to go trick or treating around here. So don't have any candy, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll throw something together makeshift for Friday and then live for there. But I'm sure that your plans, whatever they are, I'm sure, they're got a little bit more structure to it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I got my 3 kids. They're going to be going around the neighborhood. I am planning on pulling along let's see, I'm going to have a cooler of beer
Nice.
with me in the old wagon and the radio flyer or whatever we have. I don't even know what kind of wagon we have, but in the wagon, I will have some beer with me. It's not going to be a 14.8% beer. It's going to be something a little lighter. It's supposed to be a little colder here. It's been hot this week. Again, unseasonably warm here in the Midwest, but it's be a little colder tomorrow night. So I'll have a hoodie on. I'll be watching my kids get that candy that I'm going to steal later in the night. And I'll be sipping on some brewskis, man. So it'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to it.
That's a good time. So what candy are you looking to steal? I mean, and if your kids, I hope they're like a sleeper in another room or something, so they don't hear what's going on. But what are you looking for? What's your go-to usually?
Always Reese's. Always.
There you go.
Always. One time with my oldest daughter, we did do the whole, the Jimmy Kimmel trick about we were bad parents, and we did that one year, and she cried, and I felt really bad. It was funny, but then I felt bad. So, but yeah, I mean, I sneak some candy at night. How could you not?
Yeah, I mean, you just have a surplus of chocolate and sugary goodness. Like your kids can't have all that.
Yeah.
They're not going to be able to finish all that. You got to help them out a little bit. Take a little Reese's cup off their hand, a little Sour Patch Kids here and there.
Yeah. Hey, and I need a base for these 14% beers too. I mean, it's just for my health. I can't be too hungover the next day. So
yeah, you also don't want to be going around trick or treating with 14, 15% beer, going with your kids like trick or treat, just like slurring your words, like give my kids some goddamn candy.
What's your dad? Is he a zombie or something? Like what is the costume? He doesn't look like he's dressed up, but he's stumbling around the driveway. I don't know what's happening right now.
He's really in character this time.
I'm a disappointed Bears fan. That's what I am.
There you go.
Yeah, keep it on rant. All right, Jacob. Well, we'll be doing this again together in a couple of weeks. Let the listeners know where they can find you on social media, where you are always ever so popular.
Oh man, you're too kind. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever, at Jacob Infante 24. It's just my name, 24 at the end. Windy City Gridiron, obviously, Second City Gridiron for podcasts and audio stuff. I'm digging into my NFL draft, like my individual player scouting reports, and I've been sitting on these for a while. I just figure, it's going into November here. It's the halfway point of the regular season. It's a good time to take a look at what the draft has in store. Not to say everything's falling apart, the sky's falling, but I've got some knowledge, and I'd like to have it explode all over the faces of my audience. So for absolute lack of a better term, totally could have worded that better. So whatever.
Well said. What an advertisement. What an advertisement. I love that. Guys, you can find me on social media at Ryan Droste, Droste. And of course, I'm at Windy City Gridiron as well. I do the weekly Game Balls column. You can find that on Mondays over at the website, and participate in other columns throughout the week. And right here on Second City Gridiron, make sure you guys give the channel a follow while you're here. Subscribe, thumbs up this video. If you're watching us right now, hit the thumbs up. We would appreciate that. That will help us out in the YouTube algorithm. And yes, as I said, subscribe to the channel. We got new videos, new shows going up almost every single day. Make it your number one source for Chicago Bears media and entertainment. And we'll be back next week with another edition of Bears Over Beers. We'll see you all then. Enjoy your Halloween and have a great weekend. Go Bears.